Good morning, everybody. My name is Jade Alberts from Calgary, Alberta. I'm a small business strategist, influencer, and brand builder. My passion is helping small businesses grow and succeed. Sharing knowledge and stories is why I started the Telling It Like It Is Facebook Live show. It is a live show, so if you do have any questions, please put them in there. We will answer them. If you're watching this after the fact on social media, show your question out there. We will get back to you. I'd like to thank Healthy Heart Sleep Company, Calgary's premier sleep apnea CPAP company, for sponsoring this show. They are locally owned. They have 2 shops and support local. Today's Telling It Like It Is guest is Robert Irwin, founder of Matchworth. Robert, thank you for joining me today. And how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Jade.
That's good. I mean, you were going on a big trip to Toronto, so I guess maybe you brought all the great weather back with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Before we get going, I always like to talk about how you and I met, and we met with Prasanthi Naidu, who is the founder of Health Job Hub. And I know there's a little kind of story behind that, how you met her, and it's a great share.
Yeah, I think I met Prasanthi as we were part of an accelerator in Calgary called Junction 31 through CTI, Calgary Technologies. And there was 13 companies for 2 months, and we just basically worked on our companies and developed things with the support of the good folks at CTI and Junction 31. It's pretty great, actually. There's some good connections made and great little companies coming up in Alberta.
Oh, no, absolutely. And Alberta should focus more on that rather than some of the negativity that's out there. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff happening for sure.
There's no doubt there. Well, I'll give a brief introduction about yourself and then we'll get at it. So Robert is the founder of Matchworth. He spent 15 years in the investment industry and then realized there must be a better way. Matchworth is a Canadian online platform providing open, anonymous, and product-free conversation between financial advisors and investors. Their goal is to give both investors and advisors access to a better partnership. So I guess you are really starting to disrupt the financial industry by offering an unaffiliated financial advice online, by kind of breaking down the barriers of traditional, hey, here's a buddy, or however it works. Explain how you came up with this idea and why you believe it's necessary.
Yeah, well, it started when I was working in the industry itself. I mean, I had some great clients. They're wonderful people. And I saw a lot of colleagues with their client base. And I started realizing when an advisor leaves the industry for whatever reason, the clients get rearranged and passed along between different advisors. And they don't really have a say in the matter. And I found it really strange at the time where the company wants to retain those assets. And they're sort of indifferent as to which advisor the investor will be assigned to. So it occurred to me then, I'm like, well, most of the industry is designed this way. It's designed to sort of make sure that individual, once they come into the silo of the corporate investment structure, that the asset is there and it doesn't leave. And it's good business. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're not really incentivized to make sure the match between the investor and advisor is as good as it could be. And I think all the good matches are out there, but no one is putting effort into rearranging that. It's sort of a make-work project for those companies. So we've created a tool to allow investors to do just that. If they are interested in having a second opinion or new advice or a new advisor, we are unaffiliated. We're no company in particular. And advisors essentially compete for your business, and it's free, and you're anonymous on our site as an investor.
And if anybody is watching this now or after, you can click on the Matchworth link in the comment section, and it'll take you directly to their website. So do you find that a lot of people just accept the status quo when there is a financial advisor leaves? Do you know the percentages of what it may be if one stays to leave?
Yeah, it's well. Generally, I mean, 68% of people with advisors are dissatisfied with their advisor to some degree, kind of a 6 out of 10 or lower. And most of the reasons for that are poor communication. So it's not that the advisor is bad or not doing a great job. It's that the connection between the two people is not great. And people just accept it. There's a lot of barriers to moving their money It's a sensitive topic, money, and they're pretty passionate about it. And typically what you find is as an advisor, you'll have this conversation with a client, but when that client goes away and has a conversation with their friends or family, they share their dissatisfaction. They're like, this is a terrible environment. I don't like the way it worked out. I wish this, on and on and on. And that's when it really comes out. And what we found is there's nothing they can do about it other than they can talk to the advisor, but often that's a dead end. And it's not the advisor's fault. It's there's no tool for them to move around. So yeah, it's deep dissatisfaction in the entire arrangement of the advice field.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, we talk about how important communication is on all levels. Obviously, with your money, it better be a very important and be on top of it. So I don't know if this is the right phrase, but is that, broker people relationship broken? I mean, I find these E-Trade commercials very powerful. And I'm sure they're pulling people away, and people assume that they can manage their money better themselves. So, why should people, use your way rather than doing it themselves?
Well, those commercials, the E-Trade ones, or Q-Trade, actually, I think they are.
Q-Trade,
they're fantastic. And and actually, quite honestly, there's a big movement away from advice entirely, and which doesn't bode well for our business in the sense that there's no advice needed anymore. But the reality is, like, robo-advisors are fantastic. It's a great tool. They're simple. They're straightforward. But what we found is that there's 122,000 advisors licensed in Canada, give or take. And we have all their data on our site. So everyone's welcome to see these advisors in their basic form. But what's amazing is that there's so many advisors and so many people that need advice. Having room for robo-advisors and do-it-yourselfers, it's great. Some people will do that. They will continue to pursue the exploration of learning how to do things themselves. And our site totally supports that in terms of financial literacy and education. But what we also found is that as soon as someone individually has sort of a hint of complexity in their situation, like their personal financial situation, it's like robo-advice and Googling your way through this, unless you have a lot of time, energy, and a sort of an inclination or an interest in this space, it's really tough. And it's tough and it's consequential. So what people find is they work their way down the process of doing it themselves to a point, and it works. But the problem is, as soon as they hit that wall, they're like, oh no, you mean I have to actually make this decision for this amount of money? And it's like they realize the significance of some of these things. So we see these people bouncing back to the advice field. They get to a certain point, they may have a robo-advisor, they may have some of the do-it-yourself, and that's fine. And then all of a sudden they're like, what am I going to do because this life event happened? I lost my job, I'm starting a family, someone died. Like, these are major issues that it's really tough to navigate. And so they need to find an advisor to solve that problem. And it's tough to go back to an advisor when you booted them out for do-it-yourself. Or so it's an interesting dynamic what's happening in the industry right now.
No, that is very interesting. And as I always say, it's always nice to have somebody to talk to, because as you said, you can't do everything yourself, and having an expert there that is able to guide you through something, help something, and maybe be the voice of reason or the voice of saying no. I mean, that's definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, that hints on a big factor of what an advisor does. Like, stock picking isn't the biggest value at all of an advisor. It's easily circumvented, to be honest. But the behavioral finance, or the coaching and the accountability partnership, and almost the therapy component too, which all of that, almost everything I just said there, the real value of an advisor, communication is the main factor. Like, the communication between the two parties, it has to be super clean and super open. And if it's not, then people and the advisor, then they don't benefit from it. And that's what's driving a lot of the dissatisfaction and the distrust in the industry is people are paying fees, and they're not averse to paying fees. They're averse to paying fees for no value. And so if they don't see that value, they get bitter, rightfully so. And the advisor, they don't have any way other than, corporate surveys that are sent out. Like, it's pretty tough. So you see these two categories that are really, really struggling to sort of understand one another. And that's, again, why we're building what we're building.
No, and it is. And building what you're building is an online platform. So what has been some of the difficulty starting an online platform?
Yeah, I think ours is a bit of a unique challenge in the sense that it's a two-sided marketplace. We have the advisors and then the investors, and they are totally different marketplaces, and it's really tough. So because they both have very different needs and demands. So what happens is these we cater to one to build a platform, or sorry, most industry tools out there, they build for the company or the advisor, and there's nothing being built for the investor. So the investor sort of just has to walk through this gauntlet of dangers and trying to figure out their solutions. So we've had to build a platform that we find is equally balanced. In fact, it kind of favors the investor on the empowerment side. Nice. So the challenge there is just building a balanced two-sided platform and growing incrementally, so we have continuous value on both sides at all times. That's been a real challenge for sure. And then it's and some parts are easier than others. Like the advisors, once they get a sense of what we're doing, they're like, "This is an awesome idea. We're totally going to do this." And then on the investors, like, "Oh, that's so great," but they like it for very different reasons. So it's almost like we've had to build two different products. Super challenging.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure that throws into, how you've been marketing this. I mean, is it a traditional kind of get your name out there through social media and that different types of marketing, or have you gone to the way of how some, maybe trade shows or a little more traditional marketing styles?
Yeah, I think, well, the whole marketing piece is very challenging too. We're creating a lot of, so first off, yeah, we're definitely doing the traditional means of social media and standard fare. But where it really gets interesting is the content that we're creating, and it's the advisors themselves. What we found is that the platform that we have with a question and answer. So the biggest value that we have is investors come on, they create an account, it's free, they ask a question that's personal to them financially. And this all comes back to the marketing side, where we found that the advisors, they're super eager and keen to compete for your business and answer your questions publicly, so that first off, you as an investor get some quality advice. You get to sort of see the nuanced way advisors deal with your problem or would deal with your problem financially. And you can sort of rate and review advisors and see how they compare. At that point, what we found is the content that these advisors are creating on our site is just like, it's unbelievable. I mean, the quality of the answers, the thought they put into it, these are like fantastic essays, and it's for the public consumption. So what we're doing is this is sort of our edge, is we market that component. So we're showing people like these advisors, these are high quality answers with fantastic content that we're pushing out to the public. And that's mostly where we're getting traction from in the marketing side.
Oh, and that's excellent. I mean, that's and that's a good way of doing it, obviously, because now you have, all hands talking to each other, the advisor sides that are going to be putting quality stuff out there, which, builds up the strength of your site to say, hey, look, we are bringing in quality people that we want to connect you with. Yeah,
and there's other sites out there, in not just in finance, but like when you're looking for, it's no different than the employment industry. When so a company wants to hire someone, like, you get some CVs or resumes, and you go through the interview process, and for financial advising, it's like, hey, do you know someone? like you can't even get to a ratings and review site. It's just ridiculous. Like you want someone to come fix your roof, and you can get lots of reviews and ratings on that. But no, you put your life savings and your future financial self in the hands of someone without a rating and review system, and no way to engage and interview and sort of step back and be professional about your decision. So the absence of that is just, we can't understand why it isn't in the industry. But the ability to engage and sort of work down that process, for an investor to work down that process as sort of an interview process, we see is really valuable and is definitely our edge. And the advisors are partners in that process.
Oh, that's excellent. So I guess what's next for Matchworth?
We have a bunch of stuff happening, actually. The biggest thing I would say is connecting to the investor. We're basically gamifying financial literacy, which sounds terrible and boring, but what it means we see is that the biggest disconnect between the two parties is that, actually, backing up, there's a survey that was done a little while ago in Canada, and it was a massive amount of overestimation of Canadians' financial literacy. On basic things like mortgages and in basic insurance and general investments. So what's happening here is two things. The first thing is their overestimation of their capability in this space, as proven by this survey. Like they feel that they really got it nailed. But when you look at the actual results of the survey that they did, they failed miserably. So you have two things. You have overconfidence, and you have a lack of education, which is a super dangerous space, which the industry generally exploits. So we see that as the main problem that we're trying to solve here, creating a better financial outcome for Canadians. So what we're creating is product to sort of fit into that space. And as soon as you say financial literacy, like my eyes glaze over, like, oh my God, it's terrible stuff. So, and it's so important to everyone, but no one wants to do it. And they all know it's important. So our job is to make that interesting, is to make it interesting to the point where they don't even know they're consuming it. It's engaging, it's fun, it's creative. And that's what we're building. So it's going to be, if you go to our site and just sign up for the email drip newsletter, it's going to be delivered through there very shortly. And you'll see some pretty innovative things happening that aren't happening anywhere else in the world. So that's what we're working on.
Oh, and that's awesome. And again, you just go to the comment section, click on the Matchworth website, and it'll take you directly there. So the last question I have for you, Rob, is I ask this of everybody. So if you had one piece of advice for a small business, an entrepreneur, startup, maybe focus more on to the online, non-brick and mortar, what would that be?
Sorry, question again, non-brick and mortar?
Yeah. So you're an online platform. So a lot of clients I deal with, more mainstream, you're more online. So maybe what would your advice be to a small business startup that's just going to focus on, with an online site?
Yeah, I guess, I could look at it different ways. The mechanics of dealing with online versus bricks and mortar, there's a lot out there that you can process, but unique to my experience, like the biggest challenge we've had is really just dealing with uncertainty constantly. I think they call it confusion endurance. If you can hold on to and be comfortable in that space with confusion endurance, you've definitely got an edge. And it's super. It's an undervalued ability. And quite honestly, I think we're doing well with it, but it's not something I was aware of beforehand. I sort of stumbled into it, and you're like, wow, I should probably get really comfortable with not knowing anything. and just always trying to find a solution to those problems and trying to remain creative and positive and going forward, because everything works against you in this system, I think. But bricks and mortar, I don't have a lot of experience with bricks and mortar personally, but I do. The online stuff is all I do know is that there are, for every 10 options you think there's another 100 behind each of those. So there's not one way to do anything. And I can't say I'm doing it right all across the board, figuring it out as we go. And it's been a fantastic ride for sure, but you learn every day. It's like an MBA every week.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm getting an MBA every week. I'm like, I don't think it's quite that good, but
no, but I do love the confusion and endurance, and I have no problem learning new things because I don't know much to start. So even having that phrase today, I'm going to see if I can use that phrase at some point today. I love that.
Yeah, cool.
Excellent. Well, I really do appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge and story, about Matchworth. I think it's a valuable tool for people to make sure they connect with the right people. So thank you very much, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Jade. Appreciate it.
And a special thank you to Healthy Heart Sleep Company for sponsoring this show. They are Calgary's premier sleep apnea CPAP company. They have 2 locations, one in Bridgeland, one in Deer Valley. Please support local. Again, thank you, Robert. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and we will see you next week. Have a great day.